it's going.
It's on, huh?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Shit been bar show today.
No. That's about what? It's about 11 degrees hotter.
It was 108 when I had like 1 o'clock.
Oh. Yeah. It's hot enough. That's about it was earlier. It said about 93 degrees above or something.
You drinking coffee?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I drink coffee like it's water.
Hi, Brian.
Hi. Hi, Brian. Hi, Mike. I couldn't tell who you guys were with those masks on.
So based on my notes here, it's showing that Rob would be doing the invocation, and the pledge would be led by Commissioner. I'm sorry, Vice Chair Falker. I'll get it together.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, you guys, are you ready to get started?
Ready to get started.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope you can hear me okay. I'll go ahead and call this special meeting to order of the Victorville Planning Commission, May 27, 2020. Sarah, can we have the roll call, please?
Chair Kurth,
Here.
Vice Chair Marsh,
Here.
Commissioner Wells,
Here.
Commissioner Harriman,
Here.
Commissioner Huber,
Here. Okay, at this time, if we can all rise for the invocation led by myself, along with the Pledge of Allegiance by Vice Chair Marsh. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to meet. We thank you for our help and ask you to be with those in need. Please give us the guidance to make sound decisions that are in the best interest of our city and our citizens. Amen.
Amen.
Please face the flag. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I believe in the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, with that, I guess we can get right into our workshop item regarding vehicles miles traveled. I understand that staff has put together PowerPoint presentation for us, and will give us further information. So if you want to take it away, Scott.
All right, thank you, Chairman Kurth. We have a senior planner, Mike Straczynski here. Also our city engineer, Brian Gingler, and our deputy city engineer, Sophie Smith as well. We're bringing this workshop to you here to talk about this new CEQA threshold requirement relating to any new environmental analysis that we do effective after July 1st. And Mike Straczynski's put together a PowerPoint presentation to just kind of give you a basic understanding of VMTs and what we're recommending. And then we'll kind of go into some more detail and answer any questions you have. So go ahead, Mike.
Yes, Chairman, Commissioners, good afternoon. I want to formally introduce the item first. Agenda item number 1, Planning Case 20-011. We're here to discuss vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, thresholds of significance for purposes of analyzing transportation impacts under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, and to approve a resolution recommending City Council adoption of VMT thresholds of significance. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission conduct a public hearing, receive testimony regarding the proposal, recommend
That's a strange sound.
Yeah, I muted them. Go ahead.
and recommend approval to the City Council. Just a note, item 1, environmental assessment, and then item number 2 is not a code amendment. We're adopting CEQA guidelines here. Staff has a brief slideshow for the Commission to help explain VMT. This is a workshop on the city's implementation of Senate Bill 743 using vehicle miles traveled for the analysis of transportation impacts under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. SB 743 is a big change in transportation study because it requires lead agencies, such as the City of Victorville, to analyze project environmental impacts in terms of vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, rather than levels of service, or LOS, of our roadways. Now, CEQA is always evolving, and the city must adapt its policies and ordinances to keep new projects in compliance with state law, such as the first item up there, or the first circle up there, AB 32, greenhouse gas legislation, or tribal resource legislation, or the latest, SB 743, which is VMT. So feel free to ask any questions along the way. The intent of the legislation is to appropriately balance the needs of congestion management with statewide goals related to infill development, active transportation, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The legislation has taken 7 years at this point to fully implement. And as of July 1st, 2020, all jurisdictions or local agencies shall comply with CEQA VMT guidelines. And that's why we have this special meeting here today. That time is fast approaching. What is SB 743 trying to change? It changes the discussion in CEQA for the analysis of transportation impacts on the environment. It eliminates using auto delay, level of service, or LOS, and other similar measures of traffic congestion as a basis for determining significant impacts on the environment. Currently, ULOS is used as a threshold in CEQA to determine the widening of roadways and intersections. It also changes the discussion by requiring VMT to be that new analysis metric for determining impacts on the environment for transportation rather than the LOS. It also changes where significant impacts occur and where mitigation would occur. So you're all probably wondering, what exactly is VMT? It's the total weekday vehicle miles traveled generated by driving home to work, work to shopping, and then back home again. And we have a video from our consultant that we work with SBCTA, or the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority, that kind of goes through VMT.
Is this supposed to have volume?
I don't know if anybody else, but there's no sound.
It's a project management.
Is anybody else hearing any sound?
No.
No, just I just lost something.
We're trying to figure out what happened to the sound for you.
Apologize, we went through a trial run and it was working, but we'll try the video again.
Still no voice.
Should there be audience?
To understand how much VMT a person generates on a typical weekday, it's useful to map their travel throughout the day. In this example, it's traveling and then heads to work, which is 10 miles from the coffee shop. After a day at the office, Jeff returns home 11 miles away. Later, Jeff drives 1 mile to the gas station to fill up, before driving another 3 miles to the grocery store. It's a 2-mile trip back home. By adding together the miles driven, it is shown that Jeff has generated 29 VMT for the entire day. This VMT can be further categorized into the individual trip per VMT can be organized into 3 typical trip groups: home to work, or HW, home to other, or HO, and other to other, or OO. This organization is helpful in understanding the trips to and from work tend to generate the most VMT because people are willing to drive longer distances as a benefit of the trip. Do you have other questions about VMT that you would like answered? Let us know. Good grammar.
You all able to hear that okay? That time?
And,
Hope so. So the city partnered with, again, SBCTA, or the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority, and consulting firms, Fair & Peers, and Translutions Incorporated, to develop VMT guidelines. And those include the city developed VMT methodology. We developed VMT thresholds of significance, and the city identified mitigation options. And how does the city comply with SB 743? By adopting new thresholds of guidance for new development projects, and by analyzing VMT for all projects, by calculating VMT generated by a project, comparing project VMT to our adopted threshold, or future adopted threshold, documenting the impact and mitigating the impact if necessary. So the Office of Planning and Research, OPR, Technical Advisory, recommends that certain projects can be screened from VMT assessment. And those include projects that generate less than 110 daily trips, local serving retail of less than 50,000 square feet, local serving projects like schools, daycare, churches, public institutions, affordable housing, development in transit priority areas, TPAs, which Victorville does not have any of, and development in low VMT generating areas with project generation 15% below existing conditions, consistent with the RTP SCS. And essentially what that is the regional planning strategy, and consistent with development currently in that zone. So Victorville is recommending all of the OPR guidance with the following changes, which is backed by Translucent memo in attachment D within the staff report. And that would be a single family or multifamily residential development of 136 dwelling units or less. Local serving retail less than 122,000 square feet. Local serving office less than 227K. Local serving warehousing less than 290K. Local serving industrial less than 296K. Sorry, guys. And development in a low VMT generating area with project generation equal to or better than Victorville's general plan build out rather than 15% below existing conditions. And that is backed by all the work we did with SBCTA and their guidance. If you have any questions, we're here to answer.
So I also wanted to add to just kind of the real life experience that commission is going to have as these VMT thresholds are analyzed and brought forward as part of the project. As you know, most of our projects are found to be exempt, or they go through a mitigated negative declaration or even a environmental impact report. So that's all bundled as part of the California Environmental Quality Act. So we now have to analyze different components that affect the environment, one of those being traffic. Mike touched on the level of service. Level of service has been around for decades, and we're not abandoning that analysis. We are just now required by the state to also analyze VMT. So as far as like the auto delay and the letter grade of a project, that will still be analyzed. We're not abandoning that level of analysis because we still want to make sure that our roadways can handle any increase in traffic. Did you want to add any more to this?
The only thing I would add is that in our general plan, in the circulation element, level of service is a standard that we measure, and it is directly related to traffic congestion, and it does drive what improvements may be required for a project, say more turn lanes at an intersection. So as Scott said, we're going to continue to have LOS traffic impacts measured, and that won't go away.
Yeah, it just now, as of July 1st, 2020, won't be an impact under CEQA any longer.
And so, in Mike's slide where he talked about the Office of Planning and Research, OPR, they set some technical assistance standards, okay? That was just a recommendation. It states also in their technical assistance that the cities can adopt their own threshold. We are not limited to what OPR puts out. Now, if we don't adopt our own threshold, then we will be held to what OPR put out. But if we can, with substantial evidence, show that we have thresholds that are based on evidence, we can move forward with these thresholds. And that's what we've been working on with these traffic consultants. We've also had numerous conversations with the building industry, both residential and commercial. And what we're trying to do is provide the most flexibility to still encourage development, but meeting this new state requirement. And we think that we've backed it up with a nexus to greenhouse gas reduction that OPR doesn't even really address. The analysis that was done in Attachment D relates the threshold that's directly related to our local air quality management district on what they consider a significant impact for the amount of CO2 that's produced by a project. So we just put that in an analysis and broke it down into square footage of land use types and also by traffic. So we're able to screen those projects out so they will not be held to doing additional vehicle miles travel analysis. And projects that go over that threshold will need to do an analysis. But I just wanted to further explain that to you. These are thresholds that staff will use as we analyze a project and determine the level of environmental analysis that needs to go into VMT. But VMT analysis July 1st. So after July 1st, any project that the city takes action on would need to be held to the VMT standard. Obviously, a patio cover at the counter is not issuing a permit like that isn't going to require BMP, but a larger project, a larger commercial or residential project, we will be going and analyzing these thresholds to see if they could be screened out and not have to do additional analysis, or they would have to do additional analysis that we would include in the environmental document. So, over there by John, that's a great question, and you're correct. That's already gone through an environmental review. It's been determined to be exempt. So it's just new projects that you'll start seeing after July 1st that will be held to these standards. In your
No.
EMT that hotel with Commissioner Harriman, do you actually have two devices that are working right now that are broadcasting the I think we're hearing some echo. I would, based on the unit count, it likely would. We're looking at 138 single-family residents that would be able to be screened out. So given that this hotel, which has less unit count than that, but we would have to run it through the traffic manual to see if those trips would go over 1,200 trips per day, and I don't believe it would. Like let's just say 100 unit hotel.
Yeah, I'm going off my memories. I don't know, but I don't think it would be over the threshold of 1,285 trips. That's my guess.
Am I still echoing?
No.
Oh, that sounds a lot better. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I had two of them on there. So, virtually anything we've, at least since I've been around, hasn't really been subject to the DMP analysis. As written.
That is correct.
Okay.
And it's not in a low BMP area either.
So Mike was also saying that we could also screen it out by the build out, the projected trips if they comply with our general plan and the screening tool that Frontiers put together. I believe that's attachment D. They've laid out in a map form how these projects could possibly be screened out based on the traffic model that they put together. So essentially, there's three ways that we would analyze a project to be screened out from further vehicle miles traveled analysis. That's just based on that 1,200 daily trips, or the land use types that Mike showed on his slide, which is also shown on page 14 of the agenda, which is Exhibit 1 of your grand report. And those land use types go through single family, multifamily, office, retail, warehouse, light industrial, and then also OPR gives based on their local serving needs, uses like a school, affordable housing, student housing, those could automatically be screened out. But the numbers that we equate to square footage or dwelling units is something that the traffic consultant that we worked with has linked to the significant impacts that our local air quality districts would deem to be a significant project.
Scott, I have a question.
Yes.
On that slide that Mike had up, you were just talking about it, and I'm looking at it in my staff report here, the translution analysis, where it shows the different product types as relative square footages. Am I assuming that are those actual buildings, anything over 122,000 square feet would need to be assessed? Or would that be total of a project, multi-building? How does that work?
It would be the overall project. So if you had a shopping center that was over that 100 square footage, then we would likely be going through a DMT analysis that would be part of the environmental guide.
Unless we screen it through the low VMT map, we can screen it that way as well.
Yeah, that is correct. So that's another option. If it complies with our general plan, it matches the existing land use pattern, and it falls within that map that Spear and Pierce put together for the entire county. That's another way we could screen out the project for further analysis.
Basically,
and also based on I was just going to say, based on those different sectors, Mike had mentioned in the report that affordable housing would be exempt, and if so, what is our definition of affordable housing in this case?
We would have to. I don't have that information in front of me, but it's spelled out further in OPR's guidance. So we would reference their technical assistant to determine what a percentage of the area median income they're looking for to consider it affordable.
Okay.
And even though affordable housing may exceed the VMT threshold, they're exempting that wholesale, just to promote the state promoting the affordable housing aspect.
Yeah, they're exempting that because they want more affordable housing. I can get that. But when you guys do the traffic analysis, how do we do that? We don't lay down the old-fashioned strips in the road or whatever. Do you have to hire a consulting agency of some type to do a traffic analysis?
Yeah, so I think I can answer that question. So typically, let's say a project comes in for an application and it's determined that they can't be screened out and they have to do a VMT analysis. So typically, the developer would hire a traffic engineer, they'd hire a traffic engineering company, and that company would do the analysis. And they would utilize a model that San Bernardino County Transportation Authority maintains, a traffic model for the whole county, and it measures DMT, and they would use that model. And so that's how they would do the analysis. And so that's already been set up. It's an existing model, and it's available for use by anybody. It could be used by a public agency or a consultant. But typically, the developer would be the one that the traffic study, and then engineering would review the traffic study just to make sure that it meets our guidelines.
So the responsibility of the DMT analysis is with the developer, the builder, not the city. It gets submitted to us.
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct. And another thing I'd like to add, as part of a project that you take action on, listed in the conditions of approval is an exemption that holds the city not responsible for to hold up this case in court. So the project proponent takes on that liability to sort out any legal issues if somebody's challenging the project related to EMTs or any other environmental impact. So similar to other projects that we've dealt with where an appellant may not think that we did enough analysis related to a Mojave ground squirrel mitigation. We may see people appealing based on the level of analysis that was done on DMT. Because, in my opinion, it's a soft target right now because the state is implementing this new level of analyzing traffic patterns and impacts, and they've left it to the city's discretion to create the threshold. But the modeling and the mitigation measures, those are all evolving as we speak. That's partly why we're bringing this item to you right before it's implemented, is because it's still evolving. There may be case law that's created after, a year from now, that we may have to update our thresholds again. So it is not very black and white on how this may pan out over time. But I feel comfortable and same with staff with the level of analysis that's gone into the current threshold, and we base it on substantial evidence for screening out certain projects that don't create an impact that would create a greenhouse gas emission that's beyond, that would be considered a significant impact by our local air quality management district.
So SB 743 is going to invent a new type of lawyer.
Well, those lawyers already exist.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, it is honestly another element of CEQA that could be scrutinized, and we have to make sure that we go through the process and properly analyze these impacts when the planning commission or city council takes action, because it's dictated by the state that we must. Their goal is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and I think that's been set by the legislature over and over. SB 743 doesn't dictate VMT. It didn't dictate a certain metric of methodology to VMT. There's only been technical assistance by OPR given. They give the power to the cities to create our thresholds, so that's where we are at today. I could tell you that there's numerous cities in the county that, and outside of our county, that are justifying thresholds above what OPR's technical assistance lays out.
I have a quick.
Why would they do that? Why would they be above the threshold? Why would they do that?
To be very frank, the current threshold is based off a categorical exemption. Most of the actions that the Planning Commission takes, they find categorically exempt for some section. And one of the sections says that if it's a building that's 10,000 square feet or less. All right, so they based off how many trips per day an office building of that size would be, and that's where they came up with 110 trips as a threshold. But that categorical exemption isn't related to greenhouse gas. So that's where we took our methodology in creating these thresholds. Is what is our local air quality management districts, and what is the level of significance that would put a project into creating a significant impact. And so if you're under the thresholds that we've listed, you're not exceeding the greenhouse gas emissions that our local air quality districts look to. And so that's what staff's recommending the Planning Commission and ultimately the City Council to adopt by resolution, so we can start using those thresholds as we analyze new projects that come in through the door.
I have a quick question. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. When we're talking about this, and it's just for informational, but when we're talking about thresholds, let's say a house, a single family residential project. Okay. If we're the greenhouse gas emissions, the amount of traffic that's on the roadways and stuff like that, is there a provision especially in I guess within our city, because that allows a certain percentage of commuters, because a lot of people that do live up here, they don't necessarily spend the whole day up here driving around. They might commute to Fort Irwin or to LA, and that's where they spend most of their time. So with these thresholds, is there a percentage that takes that into consideration, people that don't really commute within the city?
I think I can answer that question. So our thresholds that we're recommending they're not based on vehicle miles traveled. They're actually based on the total daily trips that a development would generate. To actually know the vehicle miles traveled for a particular project, somebody would have to use the SBCTA traffic model.
Okay.
It's very location specific. So let's say you take a development that has 200 single family homes. If you put it in one part of the city, it's going to generate a different VMT than if you put it in a different part of the city. So the only way to know how a development will generate VMTs is actually to run the model. But the intent of the thresholds that we've adopted is so that if a project is below a certain size, they don't have to use the model. They don't have to do a VMT model. It's only those projects that would be larger than this trip threshold. So it's a way that we can basically screen out the smaller projects, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And on that note too, Brian, if the vehicle miles traveled exceeded what the state would like to see, what would the mitigation measures be in that case? I mean, is that what they're trying to get at? Is to try to mitigate if you're extreme VMT over a certain threshold?
That's a very good question, and I think public agencies are struggling with what really are feasible mitigation measures to reduce VMT. Like Scott said earlier, or maybe it was Mike, in his presentation, we don't have any high priority transit areas. We don't, even though we have VDTA that does all those bus routes, it's not considered what they call a high quality transit area. Like down in the valley, they have metro stations, commuter rail, rapid buses. We don't have anything like that. know we've been exploring different mitigation measures that may be feasible, but that hasn't worked out yet. And if a project can't mitigate the increase in VMT, then the only thing they could really do is have an overriding considerations in an EIR. They really wouldn't have another option. I don't know if
or make them pay for it, as we see in other cases. If the developer physically pay.
Well, and that's been discussed, and I think a number of agencies are exploring that. If you have some kind of a fee program set up that they can pay into, that actually the fee program would fund improvements that would reduce VMT, that might be a way for them to offset the increase.
If the bullet train was going to be, or the Desert Express would have been in Victorville, would that have fallen into that category?
The short answer is I don't know. I haven't even thought about that. I suppose you'd have to analyze it to give an answer.
Yeah, even with Dean in Apple Valley, it could still over.
It has no effect on us. I'm just hypothetical. Right now, it's not much.
So do any of the commissioners have any more questions of staff or any thoughts you'd like to bring up?
I think it's going to make things awfully interesting moving forward. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard you.
Yeah, I heard you.
Now, just going to a way in which you're changing to do this, going to enhance the betterment of the project that it's attached to.
It could lead to that. For example, if you have a large residential project that exceeds all of the standard requirements we have there of 138 miles. So it could be that the project proponent would need to look at other alternatives to lower that VMT. That could be improved transit. That could be adding a commercial component so people don't have to drive further to get to a project. So there would be some creative thinking there that could lead to lower VMT and a more unique development.
With that, as you said, a commercial building added to the area, would that be on Victorville to do that, or the developers, or just encouragement to bring in that business to the area? Bring that business in, or would Victorville be responsible for trying to lower the VMT? Which way would it go?
It ultimately is born on the developer to make sure that their project, with our analysis, can meet CEQA requirements. So there's a variety of ways that they can make it through CEQA's review process. It could even be like Brian said, just going through an EIR and adopting a statement of overriding consideration that the council would approve that would allow the project to move forward even though it's exceeding the VMT threshold and it's unable to mitigate. So that's a worst case scenario, that it has to go that way and get an adoption of a mitigated negative temper. I'm sorry, a statement of overriding consideration. But the developer ultimately, we would advise them on ways they can lower their VMT, but it's ultimately, their responsibility to meet the requirements.
Okay, then, with that, I think I need to open up, oh, go ahead, Denise. Go ahead.
I say I don't have anything further.
I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing and see if there's anyone here to speak. I don't know if anyone has called in or not.
I did call in. I'm Bill Blankenship from NAOP. And I did call in. I have a couple of questions. One is about process. When do you anticipate this item will go before council for adoption? That would be the first question. And then I have maybe a more technical question on the threshold of development size of a warehouse. As I recall from the staff report, I believe it was a fairly large facility, about 850,000 square feet, that was the threshold before additional mitigation had to be performed. But I may be completely wrong with that. I did read through the VMT presentation, and that's the number that I recall. Am I correct on that?
That is correct. The threshold for warehouse is 829,000 square feet.
Okay, exactly. Okay.
And just to let you know, if the planning commission takes action today, we do plan to take it to the city council, most likely on their June 16th meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blankenship. Is there anyone else out there that has called in that would like to have any questions or approach the commission?
No, that was the only caller.
Okay. Then I'll close the public hearing. And do we need to adopt this resolution then? That would be the recommendation to council?
Yeah, so I'll just recap what the staff recommendation is for you, for your consideration. Staff's recommending that you find the project at exempt and adopt the resolution number T-20-010, recommending city council approval of the VMT threshold.
That will be by motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Huber, with a second by Commissioner Wells, to approve case PL-EN 20-00011, recommending city council approval as conditioned. All in favor? Chair.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Wells?
Aye.
Commissioner Harriman?
Aye.
Commissioner Huber?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, that one has passed, and I'd like to thank all the city staff that's worked on this project, because we know that if we didn't do anything, it would just automatically default to the maximum standards of the state. And so I'd like to thank you guys, staff-wise, for working towards these minimum standards while still meeting the state requirements, knowing that Victorville is a business-friendly city.
Thank you.
Well put, Rob.
And then, what's that?
Well put.
I agree.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And at this time, we have to open up for general public comments. Anybody that would any callers out there that would like to address the commission on matters of our subject jurisdiction. Is there anyone out there that would like to address the commission at this time?
Yes, this is Bill Blankenship again from NAIOP, and I would like to thank staff for their work on this and for their proactive nature in reaching out to our association and providing this information prior to the hearing and in response to the letter that we sent to them, and we concur that the city of Victorville is a business-friendly community, and we very much appreciate that and appreciate the partnership. So thank you for this opportunity to speak and make comment as well as participate with your staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blankenship. Your comments have been made part of the record. So before we wrap it up, are there any comments or reports by Commissioner Wells? Do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything special to say today.
Okay. Commissioner Marsh?
No, nothing. Glad to see everybody doing well, looking healthy and looking good, and can't wait to see you all in person again.
Yeah. Thank you. Commissioner Huber?
Yes, I'm glad that the things are getting open again a little bit so everybody don't go broke. I have
Commissioner Harriman?
I'm good. I'm essential. I'm good.
Okay. And then any updates or comments from staff at this time?
Yeah, I'd just like to give everyone a heads up regarding the format of our meeting in June. The City Council is transitioning back to meetings with the public while ensuring social distancing. So we have advertised the Planning Commission meeting of June 10th to be held in the council chamber. So we will give you the latest safety measures. Most likely you'll be required to wear a mask, so make sure you bring that with you at the June 10th meeting. But we'll give specifics leading up to that date. And reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns.
Okay, that's good news. I like to hear that. It's back to the normal, like the good old days, right?
Absolutely.
So with that, thank you all for attending. Thank you for your input, and I'll call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.